Title: When my dad passed away, he left behind the real estate company he ran. When I got to the office, I saw my wife talking to the employees saying, "She's the new CEO starting today." As soon as she noticed me, she told me to leave, saying I was in the way, but I couldn't stop laughing, because she was... Chapter 1. The first day without him. When my father passed, the world felt quieter. Painfully so. He wasn't just my dad. He was my mentor, my business partner, and the man who taught me every corner of the real estate industry. I'd spent years by his side in the company he'd built from the ground up, learning not just the numbers but the handshake deals, the respect you had to earn. 2 days after the funeral, I walked into the office still wearing black. I wasn't there to make changes, just to check in, reassure the team, and keep things steady. But the moment I stepped through the glass doors, I froze. There she was, my wife, standing in the center of the floor, smiling like a politician, surrounded by my father's longtime employees. Her voice was clear and commanding. "Everyone, as of today, I'm the new CEO. We'll be making some exciting changes." Some of the staff glanced at me, confused. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. But before I could speak, she turned, eyes locking on mine. Her smile didn't falter. "Oh, you're here. You're actually in the way right now. Why don't you head home?" A couple of gasps rippled through the room. I looked at her, really looked. And instead of anger, I felt something unexpected. I laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an amused one. A deep, genuine laugh that stopped her mid-sentence. Because in that moment, I realized she had no idea what she'd just stepped into. Chapter 2. Cracks in the facade. I met her 6 years ago, long before my father's health started declining. Back then, she was charming, ambitious, and always talking about power couples and building an empire together. At first, I thought she loved the grind as much as I did. Late nights at the office, networking events, taking calls at all hours. But over time, I realized her ambition wasn't about building anything. It was about owning it. She liked the perks, the status, the introductions. The work? Not so much. When Dad got sick, I spent most of my time juggling hospital visits and running the company. She, on the other hand, started helping at the office, sitting in on meetings she didn't understand, charming junior staff, asking questions about share structures and voting rights. I brushed it off at the time, thinking she just wanted to be supportive. I see now it was reconnaissance. What she didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that my father had updated the company's ownership documents 2 years earlier. He'd seen the writing on the wall with his health and wanted to make sure the business stayed in trusted hands. The update gave me controlling interest and placed the CEO appointment power solely with the majority shareholder, which meant her announcement today wasn't just arrogant, it was meaningless. I didn't correct her in front of the staff. That would have been too easy. Instead, I smiled, gave her a nod, and walked out like she'd just done me a favor. Because now, I had the opportunity to make sure her crash would be as public and permanent as possible. Chapter 3. Letting the rope out. For the next 2 weeks, I barely came into the office. She thought she'd won. I could see it in the smug posts she started making on social media, captions like "running the show now" and "big changes coming." She even had the nerve to change her LinkedIn title to CEO at my father's company. Behind the scenes, I made no moves to stop her. Not yet. I wanted her to get comfortable, to believe her own hype. And she did. She started holding executive meetings, where she promised raises to employees she liked and hinted that anyone who wasn't on board with her vision might be replaced. She spent company money on designer furniture for her new office. She even signed off on a shady deal with a developer who had a history of cutting corners, all without legal review. Every decision, every signature, every reckless email, I had it all documented. My father's old assistant, who had been loyal to him for decades, quietly forwarded me everything. Meanwhile, my lawyer prepared the hammer. Proof of unauthorized use of company funds, breaches of corporate governance rules, conflicts of interest with the developer, all of it stacked neatly in a file that would do more than remove her. It would make it impossible for her to ever sit in a boardroom again. By the time I walked back into the office, she had no idea the walls were already closing in. I found her sitting in the big leather chair in her office, feet on the desk, talking loudly on the phone. When she saw me, she gave a smug little wave. "If you're here to visit, make it quick. I've got deals to close." I smiled, pulled up a chair, and said, "Oh, don't worry. I'm here to close one myself." Chapter 4. The Boardroom Reveal. I asked her to join me in the main boardroom, not privately, but with every department head present. The staff filed in, some exchanging curious glances. My father's old assistant sat near the front, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. She sauntered in a few minutes late, holding a coffee like it was a crown. "All right, let's make this quick," she said, dropping into the chair at the head of the table. My father's chair. I stayed standing. "Before we start, I want to clear up some confusion about recent leadership changes," she smirked. "There's no confusion. I've been running the company for weeks now, and..." I set a thick folder on the table with a heavy thud. "That's interesting, because according to corporate law and this company's ownership documents, only the majority shareholder can appoint a CEO. And that," I said, sliding the top document toward her, "is me." The room went still. Her eyes flicked down to the notarized papers bearing my father's signature, dated 2 years earlier. I didn't stop. "Over the past month, you've authorized unreviewed deals, misused company funds for personal expenses, and violated multiple governance rules. Here's the proof: emails, invoices, and bank statements." Gasps rippled through the room as I flipped open the folder for everyone to see. Her voice rose. "This is ridiculous. You can't just..." I cut her off, my tone ice cold. "Effective immediately, you are removed from any role in this company. Security will escort you out, and our legal team will be in touch regarding restitution for the funds you've misappropriated." 2 uniformed security guards stepped into the room. She looked around for support, but the faces that had once smiled at her now stared back in silence. Her smirk was gone. Chapter 5. The Last Desperate Move. They walked her out past the glass lobby, her heels clicking too fast against the marble floor, like she couldn't decide whether to flee or stand her ground. Outside, she yanked her arm away from security and turned to me with venom in her eyes. "You think this is over? I'll sue you for everything. The company, the house, all of it. You won't win." I didn't flinch. I knew her type. Loud threats when cornered, hoping fear would open a door. But the thing about threats? They're worthless when you've already locked every exit. 2 days later, my lawyer called. She had filed a complaint with the corporate tribunal, claiming she had an implied right to the CEO position as my spouse, and was wrongfully terminated. It was the legal equivalent of throwing spaghetti at the wall. We didn't just respond, we went on offense. My lawyer filed a counterclaim attaching every piece of evidence I'd been collecting. Unauthorized spending on her personal credit cards linked to the company account. Emails promising kickbacks to that shady developer. A signed agreement she'd made without board approval. A breach so severe it was grounds for criminal investigation. The tribunal took one look at the stack and moved faster than I'd hoped. Her complaint was dismissed outright. My counterclaim? Accepted. That meant she wasn't just losing her imaginary CEO title. She was now facing a potential lawsuit for damages, plus the possibility of criminal charges if the DA took interest. And just when she thought she could salvage her reputation, the local business journal ran a headline: "CEO imposter removed from company name, legal action pending." Her picture was right under it, mid-sentence, looking furious and powerless. She wanted a war. I gave her a public execution, one she couldn't come back from. Chapter 6. The Final Closure. Within a month, her world was unrecognizable. The tribunal's ruling opened the door for me to freeze any claim she had to the company's profits. The corporate lawyer filed for restitution, and the court approved a repayment schedule that would eat half of her income for years. The shady developer she'd partnered with turned on her almost instantly, providing statements to investigators in exchange for immunity. That sealed it. The DA's office opened a formal inquiry into her actions. Her social circle collapsed overnight. The same people who had laughed at her running the company posts now shared the Business Journal article with snide comments. Even her own family stopped defending her publicly. She wasn't just out of my life. She was radioactive. One afternoon, I was in my father's old office, clearing out the last of his personal things, when a courier dropped off an envelope. Inside was a single note in her handwriting. "You've destroyed me. Are you proud of yourself?" I sat back in Dad's chair, running my hand over the armrest he used to grip during long calls. I thought about the years of his work, the lessons he'd drilled into me. Never let anyone take what you've built without a fight. I looked at her note one last time, then fed it into the shredder. "Proud?" I said aloud to the empty office. "Number, but I am done." Before I left, I locked the door, glanced at the empty CEO's desk, and thought back to that day she'd told the staff she was the new CEO. "Not anymore," I murmured, "and never again." Then I walked out, leaving her name and her ambitions in the dust. Epilogue. The CEO. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at the annual Real Estate Networking Gala, an event my father never missed. The ballroom was full of familiar faces, veteran brokers, developers, and company heads from across the city. When I stepped up to the podium, I could see the ripple of recognition, and a few smirks from those who'd read the headlines. I spoke briefly about my father's legacy, our commitment to integrity, and the importance of protecting what you build. As I wrapped up, I paused, scanning the crowd. And to anyone who thinks they can walk in and crown themselves CEO without earning it, a few chuckles bubbled in the room. I smiled. Remember, titles are temporary, reputations are forever. The applause was warm, but the meaning was sharper than glass. Everyone in that room knew exactly who I was talking about, and that her so-called reign had lasted less than a month. By the time I left the stage, I realized I didn't just take back my father's company. I'd taken back the story, and she'd never be able to rewrite it. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story, if you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy, and subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned.